Listen, I asked you guys earlier on my main channel when I was looking into some of this Hollywood petering shit. I made a community post, and a couple of you guys had a couple really good questions. I just wanted to finish up this episode by answering a few of these, and I'll try not to be too long-winded, but some of these are very good. The first one, the first question actually was from Amber, and this was very relevant. She may have heard me say this on a different podcast already, but she asked me, the past few years have been absolutely filled with insanity and degeneracy. And I've seen a lot of people who weren't necessarily religious or atheist come to the conclusion of a higher power, see the value in religious ethics, or just straight up become religious because of it. As someone who was raised Christian but does not currently has your view. Oh, as someone who was raised Christian but not currently. Oh, I guess she's talking about me. She says, has your views changed as well? What do you currently tell your son about God or religion, if anything? This is a great question because I guess she has heard me talk about this before. I was raised religious, and just as I matured into an adult, became a little bit more agnostic and less thrilled with organized religion in general. And, agnosticism is not atheism in the sense that it's not like there is no God. It's more like, I can't prove you can't prove that there is one, and I can't prove that there's not. So I just kind of like, it's a little bit of a waffle in the middle. It's like, I'd love to think that there is, but I just have so many qualms with a lot of institutionalized religion that it's really hard for me to get behind a lot of it. But I think when you abstract a lot of the theology and a lot of the bullshit that's written in these books, I'm not super opposed to this idea of like having a relationship with a higher power, or at least a belief in something like that. I think for me, it really just comes down to faith and belief, right? I think there is merit in having faith and belief in something that is beyond and bigger than yourself. I think there's not a lot to be gained by just thinking that like, I am the God of my own life and I control everything. And, it's one thing to feel in control and in power, but I think whether or not, what you believe is objectively true. And I don't think that anyone will ever be able to prove that. I mean, that is like as long as humanity has been in existence, that's what the core of religion is, like trying to be like, hey, we understand why we're here, what our purpose is, and what our afterlife holds for us. And while you can't prove that, that can be a powerful motivator for good or bad, right? So there's certainly value in it, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, I guess. But to answer her question, yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's interesting, this idea that, the past few years have been absolutely filled with insanity and degeneracy, she says. And my response to that is like, man, we have such narrow goggles on. I'm like, the world is not as bad as you think it is, man. We're terminally online. We spend too much online just consuming all the worst shit. But if you think like out of all of the centuries and millenniums to be alive, like it's not that bad. Like, yeah, shit's crazy and there's division and people are everywhere you look online. It's like people are mad at each other and we're protesting this. And there's wars and all this stuff, but this is shit that's as tale as old as time. This is old as humanity. Humanity was built on conquering bloodshed, disaster, like that. It is innate to humanity. All of these things we're seeing, and a lot of the stuff we're seeing now was far worse a long time ago, for a long time. So well, yes, I think I'm not, in comparison, I don't know. I don't think all of a sudden it's like, wow, the world is so much worse than it was 2 decades ago. I think if we were living 2 decades ago, we would be thinking the same thing. I think no matter what era you live in, you're always thinking, oh man, the world's gone to shit. Because we have rose-colored goggles, man. That's what we do. We always look back at prior generations and think, oh, things were so great back then. And certainly there were elements of those times that were good. But we have, there's a human bias that is very good at forgetting a lot of the stresses and the terrible emotions you were, snuggled up to in that time. And you remember a lot of the beauty, aside from obvious, traumatic events, maybe.